Hello viewers, today we're going to be taking a look at how to clean and service this Lasko desk fan. This video is going to be applicable to several different models. This fan exists under a clip version, so the base is just a clip instead of the base like here. There's also a version of this fan sold under the Air King name, both with the desk base and the clip base. I believe the only difference is that those fans have a metal front guard and the plug is grounded. But I believe it still disassembles the same. So this particular fan here, this is the 2002W, but if you have either of the other three fans, the process should be the same. I'm very fond of these fans. I have them at most of my desks. They are extremely quiet and they move a good amount of air. I've had them for a couple of years now and I haven't had any issues arise with them yet, but I've gotten a number of video requests to show a video of taking it apart and cleaning it and how to oil it. So that's what we're going to do here. So the guard comes apart without any tools. There's 4 tabs in around the guard, and these tabs, they just kind of push off. I push them away from the fan and then towards the back like that. And if you do that to the top too, it should kind of finagle itself off. So there's the guard. It's a little bit dusty in there, nothing too major. You could take all these plastic parts and put them in a dishwasher. Since this is, not that dirty, I'll just take a brush and dust everything off a little bit. I own this fan since it was new, so I know where the dust came from. It's just my dust. I'm not that worried about it. The blade should pull right off. Well, maybe not easily, but that's it. It just pulls off. It's only on there with friction. And so we'll just wipe the blade off. What I find is this dust on the edge of the blade here, this is what causes the most reduction in performance. So we'll get that off and dust the surface of the blade off. And so now it looks like we have some screws. It kind of looks like that one screw here at the bottom will release the entire rear guard. So let's get that screw off. And it looks like it may turn. It may turn to the left and then come off. And then you could wash this. So that in fact is super easy to clean because all those components come off, and this you could just take and put it into the dishwasher or rinse it off in the sink or anything like that, and that was only with one screw to get that far. So that's pretty good. Now in theory, what you could do if you just didn't feel like going any further, you could take compressed air and just blast compressed air into all the motor vents, and that would probably be fine. So I want to go a little bit further. I want to take the thing off so that we can oil it. So I think what we'll do now is we'll take off those 2 screws on the outer portion of the motor. Take these 2 screws off, and I think that'll release the back. Okay, that opened up the back real easy. There's a little bit of dust in here, which is good because that indicates that the air flows through the motor pretty good. So I'm just going to take some compressed air and blow this out of here. Wasn't much in there. Okay, so now as far as oiling the motor goes, there's no oil port, of course, so we're going to have to take the motor apart, but the good news is it looks like it will come apart with ease. So we have these 2 screws left on the front, and I think that will take the plastic piece off of the motor. or rather it's going to take the motor off the plastic piece. The motor should completely separate from the fan at this point. Oh, that was convenient. One of them screws fell into this tray thing. Alright. So now the motor is released. Oh wow, you could even take this and put that in the washer too. This is super easy to clean. Cord, well, the cord could pretty easily slip out of here too, I think. Yeah, the cord would easily slip out as well. But there's no reason to undo that. Actually, I am going to undo that because it'll make it easier to work on the motor. Switch pulls off like that. One screw in the back of the switch. I don't know if that was in the focus or not. The switch just pulls off. There's one screw on the back here to undo this. And it kind of pushes in. And there we go. So that's super easy. Wow. Alright, so we have this motor here. This is a Hung Sing motor, or the HH motor. And it's there's no information on it really. But this is an enclosed motor, so there's no way for dust to really build up on the windings, which is good. On the downside, these tend to run a little bit hot, but you know, it seems like it's adequately lubricated, really. This has quite a bit of hours on it, and it's still pretty free. Well, we'll take it apart anyways and put a little bit more oil in. So we got these two screws on the back. That, I believe, it should release everything. And that screw does not turn very easily at all. A lot of times these motors are riveted together and you can't do anything about them as far as service is concerned, but this is good. This is very serviceable. I'm liking this fan even more now after taking this apart and working on it. Alright, so that should release the bearing off the back anyways. It's kind of stuck in between the wires here. But there it goes, that's off. There's the bearing, the rear bearing, and then I think the front should come off too. Let's see. We may have to just give a little bit of convincing. Yeah, there it goes. It's gonna come off no problem. Okay, there it goes. It was stuck in there pretty good. It started to separate the stator. Alright, so this will slip out. And it's very important that you don't lose the orientation to which this goes in, front to back. Otherwise the unit will rotate in reverse, which we don't want. So we know at this point, sat down like that, the longer side of the shaft is facing us. So, it's kind of stuck in the plastic here. This fan is pretty clean, so, and the shaft is clean, so I'm just going to slip this right through here. If the shaft was rusted at all, you'd have to clean that off because it wouldn't slide. I'd like this bearing to come off of this thing. There we go. Stick that back on there. I sure hope that's made of some kind of fire retardant material. Alright, so now that we're inside the fan, the bearings are saturated in oil. That's good. Very happy to see that. If you look inside, I don't know if this will focus, we could have a focus freak show here, but looking down into this bearing, there's a wicking material around the bearing. You kind of see in there. You can see it right towards the bottom of the screen now, and you can see it's wet in there. As I move it, it kind of glints in the light. It's completely saturated with oil, and that's why this has had no problems. This fan had enough oil put in it at the factory, which is kind of unusual. A lot of fans today don't come with oil. Don't come with enough oil anyways. But while I have it open, I'm going to top it off anyways. I usually use the Zoom spout oil. You can also use this 3-in-1 oil in the blue can, which has the infamous picture of the fan on the back of it. What I would not use is the 3-in-1 in the black and red can, because that's not for fans, it's for other things. So I'm going to use the Zoom spouts, and what I will do is I will fill up. Well, I'm only going to put a drop or two just for demonstrative purposes because there's oil in here already. But I'm going to take some of the oil and I'm going to put the oil in between the bearing and the surface, the outside surface. I want the oil seep into there because that's where the wick resides. You can put a drop or two in the bearing itself too, but it really needs to go on the outside of there because that's where it's gonna be held. So that's good. That's lubricated. I'll do the same thing on this one. This one is open on the front because this is the front. That one you can put quite a few drops in there. It's not going to be a problem. This one you got to be a little more conservative because if you put too much in, it's going to leak out. Just put a little bit on the surface of the bearing itself, and that's it. So that's the lubrication process. Now we'll reassemble this. I'm going to put the rear bearing on first. I don't think it matters if it goes in any particular direction. Okay, so that went on there pretty easy. And then this will drop down in there and sit in that bearing. And because it's closed on the back, there's like an air bubble, so you have to press a little bit to get it to go in. But it should be spinning very freely at this point, which it is. Very low resistance. Okay, so now we'll put this cover back on, and then we'll slip this front bearing on. And you can put a drop of oil on the surface of this too. That's always a good idea, but just a small drop, nothing that's going to leak anywhere. And this may give us a bit more grief because this fits a little bit snug in those holes. I don't know why it's like that. The other side wasn't like that at all. I may have to put the screws in and let the screws kind of force it in. There we go. I just got the top in. And the bottom's in now. Okay. That's in there. It just snapped into place. Alright, so let's put these screws back in. And these don't have to go ridiculously tight. They just have to be snug. A lot of times people jam these things too tight and then you get problems. Just close it up enough to bring the two pieces together, and then, you know, just firm, not out of control. Do the same thing here on the other side. These screws do not thread very nicely at all. Okay, so again, I'm just going to make sure the gap closes up there, and then just boom, not out of control. Now, at this point, well, this of course, go figure, is perfectly fine, but a lot of times you get to this stage and it'll be very stiff, and so what you'll have to do is you have to take a screwdriver and just kind of strike the shaft a couple of times like this. Not super aggressively, just like that. And that'll free it right up. That gets the bearings into alignment. And you probably can't see it on the video, but it's spinning very, very freely now. So that's good. Alright, so now we can reassemble it. I'll feed the cord back through. Looks like there's a little bit of a strain relief thingamajig down there at the bottom. Where that will just kind of slip into. Okay, and the switch goes back in. The clip side goes first, like that. And then the place where the screw goes. And this is only going into a plastic thread, so don't be going nuts with the tightness on this either. And this you want to make sure it aligns with the positions. Okay, so now we're ready to mount this back onto the base. It's those two holes align up with the two holes on the front pretty easily. And then these screws, nope, it's these machine screws with the finer threads. We'll hold this on. See the difference in threads here? This one on the right is very coarse, and the one on the left is very fine. These are the screws that go into the metal components. These go into the plastic components. So this metal screw is going into this metal component here, with the fine threads. And these, unlike the screws inside there, these thread very easily. Okay, so now the motor cover just goes back on like this. There's a little notch down there that meets the stand, and then that lined up there pretty easy too. So now we'll take those two coarser screws and put those on. Okay, and now put the guard back on. So this screw hole thing goes down there. So I put it on like this. Make sure it's back all the way and then turn it, and that hole should line. It kind of clicks in place too. And that screw will go in there. The blade just pushes on. There's no notch on the shaft or anything. And to put the guard back on, it also kind of just presses into place. It goes under those tabs. And that's it, we're done. So that's very good. It's kind of unusual to encounter a newer fan that goes together and comes apart easily, but this really did. As far as serviceability is concerned, that's like a 10 out of 10. It's perfect. And no complaints with anything on there. Still running good. These are great fans. I hope they make these for a real long time because it's excellent product.